Hello, test, 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 test. All right, let's see. All right, we're good. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Making the Call. Let's try this again. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Making the Call. I'll be doing a solo episode this week, running through what I'm calling the Texas Rangers first half of the season report card. I've got grades on 16 different players that we're going to run through the first half of the season as the second half kicked off over the weekend. I got to be in attendance for the lone win over the Orioles on Sunday. So that was a fun game to be at. Thankfully, they did not get swept. Thank you. Before we get into the report card and all my Rangers notes, thank you to everyone who tuned in to the Risk live stream. It was a lot of fun. We ended up playing 2 games. If you weren't there for the first, 30 seconds of the first Risk game, you missed out on just absolute chaos. It was, I'm not going to spoil it. We're going to cut up some clips from Risk, but go back and watch the live stream if you missed it. We ended up playing 2 games on Friday night. I believe the first one we streamed live. The second one we didn't. We actually had a guest come in. Our good friend Jordan Dempsey joined the Risk game for that second one. So it was a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to the Making the Call YouTube for that. It's going to be something we're going to want to try and do here in the future every now and then, because we all just had a blast doing it. Also, don't forget to be checking out the Saturday Bet episodes with Alex and Rosie. They've been recording those on Saturday mornings, giving you some bets for the weekend, building some parlays, player props, all that good stuff. They're basically kind of getting ready for football season. I know they've been talking about, some WNBA bets. Alex has had some golf picks. They've been talking, some baseball. But once we get into college football and NFL, I mean, those boys are going to have bets out the wazoo for you on those Saturday episodes. So make sure you tune into those. I've had a lot of fun listening to them. If I'm outside, mowing or doing whatever on a Saturday, I just fire up that Saturday morning episode and find out kind of what the plays are for the weekend. All right. Some Rangers notes. So like I said, I got a report card for the first half of the season. I say half, basically before the All-Star break. I know it's really kind of like 90 something games in. So it's a little more than half, but I've got grades for all these players. I've got some stats for every single player, and we're just going to kind of talk through what I've seen, my thoughts, and hopefully, you agree at least a little bit. But if you don't, that's also okay. Let me know. Trent was surprised by how many players I gave an A to, which we'll get into. But like I said, I got grades on 16 different players, and I've got 5 incomplete grades that we'll talk about at the end. All right. We'll start off with the A's. Not what will soon not be the Oakland Athletics, but the grade of an A. So I have 4 players who I gave an A grade to for the first half. 2 got an A+, 2 got an A-. So let's start with the A pluses. First one, obvious choice. It's Josh Smith. He's a team leader in OPS, team leader in weighted runs created plus. He's provided solid defense on the left side of the infield. He has gone. Here's the thing that's really impressive, because you can look at the counting numbers with him and you can be like, well, yeah, of course, he's kind of the team MVP so far of the season. But it goes beyond that. I've been posting those weekly OPS trends on my Twitter, and I'll post the latest update this week so you can see that. But what's impressive when you look at Josh Smith is he has gone the entire first half of the season without going into a slump. I'm trying to pull up some numbers here to back it up, but if you look at OPS by week, he's only had, so there's been 15 weeks in the first half of the season. He's only had 2 weeks with an OPS below 600. Both of those were over 550, so they kind of just missed. They were between 550 and 600. Meanwhile, 12 of his 15 weeks, he's been over 700, and he's had several weeks where he's even been over 1,000. So he has just been so consistent. You don't have any, 300 OPS weeks in there like you see kind of up and down the lineup from time to time. He has been consistent. He has hit for power. He's gotten on base. Really, I can't say enough good things about him. Let's see, if we look at his stats so far through the All-Star break, 861 OPS. Like I said, it leads the team. And 290 at bats. He's got 19 doubles, 1 triple, and 10 home runs. So that comes out to 30 extra base hits through 290 at bats, 40 RBIs, 32 walks, only 65 strikeouts, and 5 stolen bases. I mean, he's just doing everything. He hits for power. He gets on base. He moves runners over. He's lethal on the base pass. He's just, you couldn't ask him to fill in better for Josh Young than he has. He deserves to be the guy that we lead off the report cards on. He deserves to have an A+. There's one other player I think is deserving of an A+, and that is Kirby Yates. Through the first half of the season, he was 16 of 16 on save opportunities. I got to watch him notch number 17 yesterday on Sunday against the Orioles with that 3-2 victory. So he's now 17 of 17 on the season, 16 of 16 pre-All-Star break. pre-All-Star break. He also had a .90 whip and 34 and a third innings pitched. And he had a 46-16 strikeout to walk ratio, only a 1.05 ERA. If you've been watching the Rangers, I don't have to tell you how good Kirby Yates has been. He was an all-star. He was great in the all-star game. He's just consistent. He just comes in, strikes out a couple batters, maybe 3 batters. You get the save. You don't worry about any sort of, damage on the base path, any like high intensity situations. He just kind of comes in, gets 3 outs, and it's a ball game. So he's been really good. I think Josh Smith and Kirby Yates are the only players deserving of an A+. I think there's 2 other players deserving of an A, which we'll get into. But I think if you think of the 2024 Rangers up to this point, if you tried to name, okay, who are the standout stars of the season? Who are the guys who have gone above and beyond? It's Josh Smith and it's Kirby Yates. And I think if you asked 10 Rangers fans, at least 9 of them would come up with those 2. You might get one that leaves off one of them, but they both have been fantastic. Going down to A-. So I've got Marcus Semien. I'm still giving him an A. Yes, it's an A-, but he's 4th on the team in OPS, 4th in weighted runs created plus. He's 1st in runs, 1st in RBIs. So he is responsible for a lot of the scoring that the team has done this year, even though, their scoring numbers have been down. He has still been contributing. And honestly, the thing that kept him at an A for me versus dropping him down to like a B+ is he's been the best defender. Not just on the team. He's been arguably the best defender in all of baseball. He's 1st in Major League Baseball on outs above average. He's tied for 8th in defensive run saves with 11. The leader has 13, so he's only 2 back of the lead, but 1st in outs above average. Obviously, he leads in both those categories on the Rangers. You look at his metrics for fielding. I mean, he makes all the easy plays, but he also makes the hard plays look easy, which I think is representative of a good defender. He's not on Beltre's level because Beltre did it at 3rd base, but that was one of the things, and this is relevant because Beltre had his Hall of Fame ceremony on Sunday, but that was one of the things that always stuck out to me about Beltre. And it's the reason why he's my favorite baseball player of all time, is the fact that the hard plays, the plays that he wasn't supposed to make, he made, and it was no big deal. He just did it, and you wouldn't even. It was like if he didn't make the play, you were utterly shocked. And I do think, in a way, Semien is getting to be like that, to where a hard hit ball up the middle, something where he's got to dive or go down on a knee or whatever, he's making it, and he's making a good throw to first base, and you get the out. So I do think he is deserving of an A. I'm giving him an A-. The other player I think is deserving of an A is going to be David Robertson. It's not just because of his last name. I promise you. I took all favoritism towards names aside. Okay. David Robertson has a .93 whip through the first half of the season, a 2.88 ERA in 40 2/3 inning pitch, and he's 61-12 strikeouts to walks. Keep in mind, Kirby Yates comes in as a closer, so it's a more high leverage situation, but Robertson is typically their 8th inning guy, and he certainly has become that, right? If you're power ranking the bullpen arms that you're most confident in, Yates is 1st and Robertson is 2nd. I think it's pretty clear Robertson is number 2, but Yates 46-16 strikeouts to walks. Robertson is 61-12. So he's got 15 more strikeouts and 4 less walks than Kirby Yates. So he is deserving of an A. The numbers back it up. He's been consistent. You won't find very many duds on his game log. He is deserving of an A. So those are the 4 players that I gave an A to for the first half of the season. Josh Smith and Kirby Yates with an A+, Marcus Semien and David Robertson with an A-. All right. Next up, Corey Seager. I'm giving him a B+. I know he started the season off slow, but get this. Even with his slow start, he finished the first half in terms of team rankings, 2nd in OPS, 2nd in weighted runs created plus, 1st in home runs, 2nd in runs, and 2nd in RBIs. So he is still the straw that stirs the drink for the Rangers offense. The Rangers offense goes as Corey Seager goes. And even the fact that he started off slow he still is putting up the counting stats. Now, this is a down year by his standard. Certainly, if you compare it to, what was he finished second in MVP last year with his production last season. So it's a down year compared to that. But you still look at it, 825 OPS so far this season. He's got 30 extra base hits, 48 RBIs, 44 walks, which is crazy. To put his walks into perspective, he's at 44 walks all of last season. Now, last season he missed a handful of games, but last season he excuse me, he had 536 plate appearances and he had 49 walks. So far, he has 371 plate appearances this season and he's already at 44. So he's getting on base at a high rate. His average isn't quite what you'd want it to be, but he still is slugging it well, even if it is kind of a down year by his standards. So I gave him a B+. The other player I think deserving of a B+ is going to be Nathan Eovaldi. There's rumors that they might trade him. I hope, of all the pitchers that are being rumored that could be dealt, I hope he's the one they hold on to because they can bring him back next year. He's got a 2.97 ERA and a 1.04 whip through the first half of the season. That's in 94 innings pitched. Then really, like, the thing that I think is important to note about Eovaldi is he's averaging almost 6 innings per start. I believe if you calculate, it's like 5.875 innings per start. Whenever he takes the mound every 5th day, that you're getting at least 6 innings out of him. And if you're not, it's 5 2/3, or it might be 7 innings or 7 1/3. He is what you need from a starting pitcher. He is the anchor in this rotation with all the injuries that this team has suffered, with the reinforcements that are on the way. He's been the guy that they've been able to say, all right, every 5th day is yours, Nate. Go out and shove and give us 6 innings. And that's what he's done with a sub-3 ERA. So I'm happy with that. You should be happy with that. He's been really good this year. He's certainly deserving of a B+. For a B-, I've got 4 guys. I've got John Gray, Andrew Heaney, Wyatt Langford, and Nathaniel Lowe as the other 4 guys with B's as a B-. So if you're keeping track at home, 4 guys got an A, and I've got 6 guys getting a B. We'll start with John Gray. He was above average in April and May. He was below average in June. Plus the 2 starts that he had in July, they weren't very good either. So basically half the season he's been really good. Half the season he has not been very good. Overall, you look at the splits in the game logs, he's been better more times than not. So I think of that as, okay, B-, you're above average, right? So that's why I ended up giving him a grade of a B-. You look at his numbers, 4.01 ERA, 1.32 whip, and that's an 85 1/3 innings pitched. The other pitcher with a B-, Andrew Heaney, 3.79 ERA, 1.25 whip, and 95 innings pitched. An interesting nugget about him, he only has 1 start this season where he's given up more than 3 runs. So he doesn't give you, if you look at his game log, he doesn't give you the depth that you would want from a pitcher. Certainly not the depth that you get from like a Nathan Eovaldi, but he doesn't have the disastrous starts. Like I said, only 1 start where he's given up more than 3 runs. Go look at his game log. So that one game, that was, let me find it here. Okay, sorry. I take it back. I overlooked 1. So he has had 2 starts where he gave up more than 3 runs. And they were both in the month of April. So April 8th, which was the second start of the season, gave up 6 earned runs to the Houston Astros. That was in 3 2/3 innings pitched. And then 4 starts later on April 25th, he gave up 4 earned runs to the Mariners. But other than that, it's been 3 or less. You see a lot of 3s, 2s, 1s, and 0s on the board. So like I said, he doesn't give you the depth that you would want from like a frontline starter, but he also does a good job of limiting the damage. That's what I noticed in yesterday's game when I was in the building. There were innings where he'd walk the leadoff guy, then the next guy gets a hit, and all of a sudden you got 2 men on, nobody out. No one scored. He figured out a way to get a ground ball, get a double play, fly ball, strikeout, whatever. And that is a sign of a good pitcher, someone who can get out of those jams. You would like him to not get into the jams as much as he does, but the numbers back it up that he does a good job of limiting the damage, which is deserving of a B in my book. So he gets a B-. Wyatt Langford also gets a B minus. I love Wyatt Langford. You know I love Wyatt Langford. I've talked a lot about him on this podcast. It took him a while for him to find his power. It was just kind of a weird thing because we know he has power. We know he can hit for power. But once he found his power, he has been off to the races. I know he just got out of a little slump that he was in where he's like 0 for 18 or whatever. But he had an 894 OPS in June, and he ended the first half. Keep in mind, I just said it took him a while to find his power. And I'll kind of show you if you go by month for Wyatt Langford. And I'm not going to look at his OPS. I'm just going to look at his slugging because that's his true power, right? In March, he only had 12 at bats, but he did slug 500. So he started off strong in kind of the first, the 3 games in March. April, he had a slugging of 290. May, he had a slugging of 143. And then June, this is whenever he arrived onto the scene when he had that 894 OPS. He was slugging 526. And then so far in the, handful of games in July, it's a 339. So it's not quite as high, but that's kind of the slump that he just got out of. So with all those numbers, he still finished the first half with 40 RBIs and 296 plate appearances. So he's still getting runs across the board. He's still coming in clutch. He's scoring runners in scoring position. He's hitting doubles with a man on first. He's doing those things. And now the power is starting to come, which I think is really cool to see. Nathaniel Lowe, I'm giving him a B minus because he's actually gotten on base at a good clip if you look at it, but he hasn't been slugging like you would expect him to be. And he hasn't been slugging like you need your first baseman to. You think about kind of the typical roster construction. Your first baseman is supposed to be one of your boppers, right? That's supposed to be the guy. He's batting, third, fourth, or fifth, and he's hitting your other guys in. He's hitting doubles. He's hitting home runs. He's usually more of a thumper. He's not moving around the bases, right? A la Albert Pujols. Now, is Nathaniel Lowe ever going to be Albert Pujols, who's arguably the best right-handed hitter of his generation? No. But Nathaniel Lowe has not been slugging it at a clip that we should expect from him, and certainly at a clip that you need from your first baseman. Okay. He only has a 373 slugging percentage pre-All-Star break. Compared to all of last season, he finished with a 414. So that's 41 points lower. And he actually has never finished a season below 400 slugging in his career. So the fact that he's at 373 shows you that it's been a slow start for him. I know he missed some time with injuries and all of that, but we need him to start hitting the ball deep into the ballpark again, squaring up putting the barrel to the bat at a higher clip, getting that exit velo up like we've expected from him. So it's coming. I think I'm not worried about Nathaniel Lowe at all. I'm more so commenting on what we've seen so far this season, but we need to see more from him. So he still gets a B minus because if you look at some of his other numbers, let's see here. Like I said, his OPS, not great. Slugging, not great. Still an OPS of 721, and that's because he's been getting on base at a 348 clip with a 262 batting average. So he still is getting on base. He's still being productive. He's still one of their more reliable hitters in that regard, but you just haven't seen the power that you've come to expect from him. All right. So that was the 6 players who I gave a B to. Let's get into how many is this? 5 players that I gave a C grade to. We'll start with the 2 that got a C plus, and that's Leody Taveras and Jonah Heim. We'll start with Taveras. He gets a C. He gets a C plus because he's been very unreliable at the plate. Here's his number of weeks at various OPS marks. So again, I mentioned this with Josh Smith. There's been 15 weeks in the season so far. He's had 2 weeks of a sub 200 OPS. Now, you should know what it means. OPS, on base plus slugging. If you have a week below 200 OPS, you're basically getting out every single time you come up to the plate. And that's what he did. So 2 weeks below 200. He had 5 weeks between 300 and 600, which is still really, really bad. I mean, think about it. To get above 600, you need to have all you need is an on-base percentage of 301 and a slugging percentage of 300, which is not high at all. And he can't even do that. So 5 weeks between 300 and 600. So plus the 2, that means basically half of the season so far. You look at his weekly OPS, it's been sub 600. He's had 5 weeks where he's been between 6 and 900 OPS. So those are good weeks. And then he's had 3 weeks where he's been above 900. So the reason why I say he's unreliable, you split that down the middle. Half the time he is one of your worst hitters, and half the time he is really productive, if not very productive. He gets a C plus. He gets a little bump because he does make some really good plays in the outfield. He can cover a lot of ground. He gets a lot of hate. He is one of the more polarizing players among Rangers fans. But if you look at his fielding, which I'm pulling it up, his range and outs above average, 89th percentile, arm strength, 91th percentile, and running sprint speed as like on the base pass, he's 86. So he is a plus defender, but his bat has just been poor. In fact, it would be, his OPS would be the lowest of the last 3 seasons. Same for his slugging, same for his on base, same for his batting average. So he really is having a down year, even by his standards. The other guy who gets a C plus, it's going to be Jonah Heim. 644 OPS from your catcher. Only 18 extra base hits and 302 at-bats. 18 extra base hits and 302 at-bats. Just let that sink in. His power has just disappeared. I don't know where it is. I don't know if the Rangers have been, they do all those giveaways. I think maybe they should do like a giveaway where it's one of those old-fashioned milk cartons and it says lost Jonah Heim's power. And I'm not going to give into the recency bias where I just saw him hit a 3-run home run on Sunday against Baltimore. So maybe me calling him out and what we saw yesterday is a sign of a change in the tide for him, to where he busts out of it and he starts producing more and hitting for more power. But 644 OPS, only 18 extra base hits. Last year, he had a 755 OPS and he had 46 extra base hits and 357 at-bats. He's already at 302 at-bats so far this season. So I'll do the math for you. And only 55 more at-bats last season. He had 38. No, is that right? Sorry. 28 more extra base hits than what he's got so far this year. 46 extra base hits and 357 at-bats compared to what he's done this year, which is 18 extra base hits and 302 at-bats. We've got to get more power out of him because he's never been a guy who hits for average well. He's always been a guy to where he's kind of streaky at the plate, but he's always hit, his slugging has always been there. So far this season, 358. Actually, let's go pre-All-Star break because of that 3-run home run. Pre-All-Star break, his slugging percentage was at 354. You compare that to last season where he was at 438, and the year before that he was at 399. So he's been a 400 slugging guy for the past 2 seasons, and he's at like 350. And that's just, it's unacceptable. He's got to pick it up. 3 guys who got a C minus are all pitchers. Start with Michael Lorenzen. The total numbers, if you look at it, they look okay. They look okay, but he's too inconsistent. And that's kind of the trend of these guys who get a C, right? Where they've shown some flashes, but they're too inconsistent. He's had 4 starts out of his 16 so far where he's given up more than 5 earned runs, which you're not setting your team up to win, and you're not doing your job as a pitcher if you're giving up more than 5 earned runs. Now, this is not more than or equal, right? So these are starts where he's given up 6+, okay? 4 out of the 16. So every 4 start, he's done that. Total numbers, 352 ERA, 122 whip, and 92 innings pitched. Jose Leclerc also gets a C minus. He has also just not been reliable. 395 ERA, 120 whip, and 41 innings pitched. His strikeout to walk is 54-24, so like 2-1, which is low for a reliever. You think about the ratios I gave you for Yates and Robertson, compare that to Leclerc, it's night and day. And then finally, Jacob Latz, similar to Leclerc, very unreliable and just someone that you can't trust. That leads us to the F grades. I'm going to try to be measured because I really like this player. He is a fan favorite. There's only one player I gave an F grade to for the first half of the season, and it's Adolis Garcia. He stands alone with a failing grade through the All-Star break. He's been by far the most disappointing player on the 2024 Texas Rangers, by far. Here's his stats through the All-Star break compared to his stats through the All-Star break last season. So the exact same point just a year ago. OPS, he's at a 682 compared to an 848 last season. Hits, he's at 72 compared to 91 last season. Extra base hits, he's at 32 compared to 43 last season. And then RBIs, he's at 45 compared to 75 last season. And to make matters worse, he's gotten worse as the season has progressed. If you go OPS by month, in the 3 games of March, he was at a 959. In April, he was at 929. In May, drops down to a 544 OPS. June got up a little bit to 632, and then so far in the month of July, he's at 433. I saw someone say this on Twitter, which I think this was a little mean, and I wouldn't go this far, but someone said he's basically been Javi Baez with aura this season. It's not that far off. I watched him on Sunday get out on either the first or second pitch and 3 straight at-bats. It just looks like he doesn't know what it looks like he's not seeing pitches. And he's always been an aggressive swinger, and you take that because of the power that he brings, but he's not hitting for power and he's still being aggressive. So that means what we need from him is he needs to see more pitches. He needs to be patient. He needs to change his approach to try to switch, hit for contact a little bit more, try to go the other way, things like that to kind of break out of it. Just because he's been awful. I mean, batting run value, which is a metric, advanced stat that Baseball Savant tracks, he's at a -14, which is in the 3rd percentile. So 97% of major league hitters have been better than him this year. You look at expected batting average, 20th percentile. Expected WOBA, 44th percentile. The only things he's like above average in to great is average exit velocity, barrel percentage, hard hit percentage. He needs to pick it up. The Rangers have no shot of making a push into the playoffs if they're getting a truly negative value out of Adolis Garcia in this lineup, because they still have him batting 5th. So you get Langford on, you get Josh Smith on, and there's 2 outs, innings over because Adolis Garcia is getting out. Incomplete grades, just to kind of show you how injured the Rangers have been. I gave an incomplete grade to Max Scherzer, Dane Dunning, Cody Bradford, Josh Sborz, Evan Carter, and Josh Young. Obviously, we need to get those guys back. We need to get Tyler Mahle back in here. We need to get Jacob deGrom back in here. If the Rangers have any chance of surviving, we got to start getting some of these guys off the injured list. Or, in the case of a Max Scherzer or Josh Sborz, just get them to stay healthy now that they're back, because they've been great since they've been back. I've had no complaints with them. So, yeah, that's my Texas Rangers first half report card. Who knows if they're going to end up selling. I think what you might see from them is they move some of their, expiring deals. Michael Lorenzen and Andrew Heaney. I would love to see them just hold on to Kirby Yates because he's been so good. And I think you can move some of those expiring pitchers and you get some of these other guys back, a Cody Bradford, a Tyler Mahle, a Jacob deGrom, even a Dane Dunning. You have plenty of pitching, right? So I could see them kind of be small sellers and then just kind of wait and see see if they can still make a push into the playoffs, which I think they're still capable of doing. It starts with this 4-game series they have this week against Chicago. They, at a minimum, guys and gals, they have to win 3 out of 4 from Chicago. They have to. If they split the series, it's literally, I'm not exaggerating, it is a disaster if they don't win 3 out of 4 against Chicago. Honestly, they need to sweep them. They need to win 4 straight against Chicago. But I'll give them a little leeway. If they win 3 out of 4, it's a success. If they do anything worse than that, it's a disaster. This is like it just is. Chicago's terrible. They're historically bad. So that's what we got coming up this week. Just wanted to kind of, rattle off some thoughts on the Rangers, give you my first half report card. Alex and Rosie will be back this Saturday morning on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, giving you their favorite bets of the weekend. So tune in for that. We'll be back with another regular episode of Making the Call next week. So you won't want to miss that. Subscribe to us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple. We have links to all of that in the notes of this episode. So be sure to do that. Also join the Making the Call Discord, because if you don't want to just get the bets from Rosie and Alex once a week in the Saturday morning podcast, hop in the Discord, because they're posting their bets all throughout the week. They're posting their slips. Anytime they bet, it's going in that Discord. So look out for those. Join that. We'll have a link to the Discord in the description of this episode as well. But yeah, that's what we got this week. I guess you guys need a dad joke, don't you? Okay. I did not come prepared with a dad joke. So let's find one real quick for you, and then we will bid this podcast adieu. All right. Let's see here. All right, first one. Oh, here we go. Here's a good one. I got fired from Pepsi after working there for 20 years. I tested positive for Coke. All right, that's it for this week. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your week, and we will see you next time.